Understanding the market is the center of every business. Market research and insights are always high value information. But how do you translate these insights into success? There are some skills we need to talk about. Hi, welcome to the Art of War in Practice. I'm your host, Tristan. This is where I talk about how to apply the Art of War principles to get better results in business and everyday life. And today's topic is the third of the 5 elements of success in the art of war, the battlefields. On our planet, war is a universal language across time and space. So in our culture, great military strategies have always been the most effective way to secure victories. For thousands of years, the fundamentals of these strategies have never really changed because the center focus has always been the nature of conflicts and the human competitive minds. And a major component of these military strategies is the art of using the battlegrounds. And that's why in the art of war, 1/4 of the content is all about them. So today, let's kick it off with the basics. In chapter 1:1-8, the book says, Earth comprises distances, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. Like always, instead of explaining what it is, the art of war only gives us a construct with a few conceptual attributes, which again makes it pretty difficult to understand. So the best way for us to learn from this is through real battles that show us what it means. And the story I picked for today's topic is arguably one of the most famous battles in European ancient history, the naval battle of Salamis. It was the battle which the Greek army fought against the Persians in the Second Persian War. In 480 BC, under the new Persian king Xerxes, the Persian Empire started the full-scale invasion to Greece for a second time, as the response to the defeat of the first invasion 10 years ago. This time around, Xerxes spent 6 years putting together a massive army because he wanted to conquer all of Greece in one single campaign. On the Greek side, 2 leading states, Athens and Sparta. They united the Greek states and formed an alliance to fight back. The war started in early September, and Xerxes was dominating it. Right from the beginning, Xerxes defeated the Spartan army in Thermopylae and killed the king of Sparta, Leonidas. And at the same time, he also made the Greek army suffer heavy losses in the naval battle of Artemisium. This allowed the Persian army to conquer quite a few major cities in Greece in just 1 month. By the end of September, the Persian army had already arrived at the front gate of Athens, so the city started to evacuate. At this point, Xerxes felt that he was invincible, and to him, he had already won the war. And the only missing piece was just a glorious battle that would end this war. The Greek army was outnumbered in the beginning, and it went a lot worse as the war went on. But while they were planning the final evacuation, the Athenian general, Themistocles, still managed to come up with a strategy to fight back. Not every state agreed with it, but again, they had no other choices. So almost at the last moment, the alliance went ahead with the plan. And this plan had 3 parts. 1, challenging Xerxes on the sea instead of the land. 2, leaking the message to Xerxes about where the navy was stationed. And 3, setting a bait. The purpose of doing this was to lure the Persian fleet into the Straits of Salamis. It is a narrow waterway near Athens. So Themistocles gathered the rest of the navy, a total of roughly 400 ships, and stationed at Salamis. And then he sent a servant to bring the message to Xerxes, telling him that the Persian was winning. So Themistocles himself was willing to submit. And to prove his loyalty, he was willing to give out the information of when and where the Peloponnesians would evacuate. And what Xerxes needed to do was simply to block their way out at the Straits of Salamis. After the naval battle of Artemisium, Xerxes was not very happy about the performance of his navy. He thought his soldiers were acting like cowards, without the king himself being the commander. So when he got the message from Themistocles, he sent a fleet to scout at the coast of Salamis, and then he gathered all of his navy commanders and asked, should the Persian navy fight the Greeks at Salamis. Because the navy commanders were desperate for approval, everyone agreed to fight, except one person, Queen Artemisia of Caria, a Greek state but fought as an ally of the Persians. She brought two reasons why not to fight. One, the Athenian navy was much stronger than the Persians. And two, Xerxes could just wait, and the victory would be his because the Greeks were running out of everything. Xerxes was very pleased with her advice and praised her, but he ordered the navy to fight anyway because he believed, with himself commanding the navy, this would be the decisive victory to end this war. So in that very evening, he sent 1,200 ships to the Straits of Salamis. Whether or not Themistocles was genuinely submitting, his plan was to block both entrances of the waterway using his large ships and annihilate all the Greeks inside of the battle. And this was almost exactly what Themistocles wanted. Of course, it was a very dangerous plan, but in the naval battle of Artemisium, he learned his lesson. And after he studied the Persian navy's equipment and fighting style, he understood that to win the battle, he had to fight in close conditions. So he ordered his ships to keep withdrawing deeper and deeper into the straits and let the Persian fleet get in. And when there were plenty of these larger Persian ships in the narrow straits, he gave the order to engage. He sent the smaller Athenian ships to row in along the sides of the Persian ships and ram the paddles off or ram into the middle of the ship bodies. So very quickly, the great number of Persian ships and their larger sizes, which supposedly were their advantages, became active hindrance for maneuvering the ships. This creative attack completely disorganized the Persian fleet. Seizing this opportunity, Themistocles started the full-scale assault and scored a decisive victory for the Greek alliance. In the naval battle of Salamis, Xerxes lost 2 brothers and 300 ships. He was full of rage and shame, but there was nothing more he could do. He then left the conquest of Greece to his generals, and he returned to Asia. Then the war started to turn to the Greek side. After just 1 year, the Persians were completely driven out of Europe, and the Second Persian War came to an end. Of course, this is just a very bland and brief rundown of how the war went. The actual stories are infinitely more fascinating. For thousands of years, this Persian War has always been the cultural icon for heroes, courage, and wisdom. There was the legendary king of Sparta, Leonidas, the father of naval warfare, Themistocles. This war is just full of epic figures and stories. But what's important for us today is that these battles truly showcased the practical applications of the wisdom in military strategies, especially on the Greek side. Besides the superior training and gears of the Greek army, there was, of course, the game-changing factor in the battles, leveraging the battlegrounds. At Salamis, when Themistocles combined the fighting style seamlessly with the features of the straits, the battlefields genuinely became the power amplifiers of the Greek navy. Now let's revisit the art of war. Earth comprises distances, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chance of a life and death. So after the story, this abstract idea starts to make sense. It is telling the leaders to try to use these characteristics to create advantages. But of course, one brief summary is only the beginning. It had a lot more to it. So let's go one step further. In Chapter 10, Terrain, the art of war breaks down the general battlefields into 6 different types. And one of them is the Entangling Grounds. In the book 10.4 to 10.5, the book says, ground which is easy to enter but hard to exit is called entangling. To fight in entangling battlegrounds, if the enemy is unprepared, you may sally forth and defeat him. But if the enemy is prepared for your coming, and you failed to defeat him, then return being impossible, disaster will ensue. Obviously, Themistocles created this entangling battleground for Xerxes to enter easily and impossible to exit. But without the crampling terrains of the straits, the great numbers of ships and their larger sizes, this plan would not work as effectively. And the value for us is not only just understanding leveraging the environments as a general idea, it is actually a very practical strategy that we can use in business settings. Here, I brought a famous case that shows us how to create an entangling market for your competitor by leveraging the features of customer segments and markets. Let's take a look. In 1992, Ecolab, an American company that provides cleaning and hygiene products, started a new business strategy called Circle the Customer, Circle the Globe. The strategy was aimed to develop new market segments and geographic territories. But it wouldn't be easy because there were just so many competitors out there. And among the competitors, one of the companies, Diversey, also started aggressively getting new markets and customers during the same time. So these two titans went head on. Now, a typical cleaning chemical business involves a few things like installing the dispensers, dropping the cleaning chemicals, providing delivery services, and maintenance. Now, to make it simple, let's just say there are two market segments, the large accounts and the small accounts. The large accounts include customers like restaurants, hospitals, office buildings, and etc., who are buying more of the products in one place. And there's the small accounts, consumers and small businesses. They're simply buying fewer products in one place. Now, the difference is that large customers always bargain for lower prices. They're difficult to deal with, and once on board, they tend to stay. And because they're buying more products per location, the company could provide services like delivery and maintenance more efficiently and thus more economically. Small customers, on the other hand, can't bargain. So their unit price is higher, therefore more gross margin. But their service cost is also higher because it is less efficient to provide logistics and maintenance for them. No matter how Ecolab or Diversey called their campaigns, their purposes were exactly the same: to get more customers and gain more profit. So when Ecolab realized that Diversey was trying to do the same thing, they came up with a strategy. They deliberately raised the prices for smaller customers, and naturally, this made a lot of customers switch to Diversey. And this was less of a problem to the customers because they normally don't have long contracts. So this move made Diversey start to get more and more small customers in a very short period of time. And Diversey thought it was actually because their campaign was working, and Ecolab was losing the game. So Diversey moved even more resources to developing small customers. But while Diversey was doing all of these, Ecolab went full scale, developing the bigger customer accounts. They started merging with other companies who were also in the same business, so they grew this market segment at a very rapid speed. And also, they kept letting Diversey picking up the small customers from them. As a result, Ecolab got more large customers and Diversey got more small customers. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with it, even to Diversey themselves. But until the scale went big enough, that's when the lower service cost of the large customers turned into a genuine advantage over the higher service cost of the small customers. They both ended up with more customers. They both had a revenue increase, but Diversey was paying a significantly higher cost for their services. And that became the disaster that killed the business. They could not lower their prices anymore to compete with Ecolab due to their high service cost. And the large portion of the small accounts also required more manpower to provide services, which made the situation even worse. So, as Diversey was struggling to survive, Ecolab profit went up by 20%. And eventually, in 1996, Diversey had to sell the company and quit the market. The entangling market strategy worked for Ecolab, a strategy that pulled the competitor out of the profit zone and fell into the swamp of the messy and high service cost. Of course, business competitions and military conflicts are not the same. Success in the marketplace is eventually achieved by winning customers, not by defeating competitors. But this idea of employing the right strategies that leverage the features of your markets or your battlefields are fundamentally the same when you're trying to take the lead in a competitive environment. Whether you're the one who actively employs an aggressive strategy or you're just getting prepared for handling tough competitions, Get marketing research and insights is only step one. They visualize the characteristics that you need to know about your battlefields, but only when you can combine these insights with the nature of your business, the capacity of your team, and most importantly, your competitive mindset. Then they can truly become your winning component that amplifies your power and leads to victory. So, in summary, the third element, the battlefields, it is a critical step forward for us to start training our competitive minds to become more sensitive to the characteristics of the market, to actively use these components to build the adaptive and flexible plan to amplify your competitive advantages. And that is why it is the fundamental element for success. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been The Art of War in Practice. I'm your host, Tristan. I'll see you next time.